Hello, hello, English folks. Let's get started this week. You are looking at doing some research, adding some research to your already written argumentative essay. So this video is talking about beginning your research, beginning it. So first steps to a research project, we kind of have three, right? We want to start out with a research question that's really going to ask, what is it exactly that you're researching? And then you actually have to go out and gather those sources and then draw those conclusions, integrate that information, meaning synthesize it, put it into your actual writing, right? So this video is going to focus on the first two steps of that process, right? Developing what it is exactly that you plan to go and research and gathering some sources, just some tips and tricks on hopefully making research a little easier for you. So first thing we have to think about is a research question, right? So this is an actual question of what is it that you're asking the interwebs, right? The research to hopefully get answers back on, right? Helps narrow down your search so that you're not just typing in Africa, right, and getting everything from every date, from every time, from every region, right? Makes your research more focused on your actual topic, and you can revise this a little bit, right? You can make it more specific, you can make it a little more broad depending on what you find. Key with this is we don't want it to be too broad. How do you tell that, Miss Well? If it's too broad, you're going to get lots of search results. This is when you type something into, say, Google, right? And you get 7,000 million results. It's like, great, but you're never going to be able to, one, include all of that research into your paper, and you're never going to be able to read all of them, right? Not what we want. If your research question is too narrow, too specific, right, you're going to get no results back. Or sometimes I know Google does this where it's like, you did not get many results, right? You're going to get too little info. So it might be too specific for a full essay or to really back up your point, because it's going to be such a narrowed in point, really, really specific, that it's not actually super helpful for you, right? Because it can't be backed by other sources. So we want for your research question to be somewhere in the middle. Now, it doesn't have to end all be all be this perfect situation if you're like, I found the perfect balance and I can get sources, right? Can be revised as you go, right? Maybe you start with something and you're like, actually, that's too broad. I'm getting too many sources, and you narrow it down, or vice versa, depending on what you're researching. All right. So to practice that, have a couple of research questions written here that I have seen from folks in the past. So thinking about it for a little bit, I'm going to read them. We'll encourage you to pause the video to think about it, right? If you're in a group, discuss it with other people. Talking, what? All right. But thinking of, is it too broad? Are we going to get a million bajillion sources if we type this into Google? Or is it too narrow? We're only going to get maybe one or two sources, or each of the sources are just going to list the same thing, and we're not going to have a range of information to include in a report. All right, so three here, I'm going to read them out and then we'll think about them. So what marketing strategies has the Coca-Cola company used in the past? Coca-Cola being the drink company, right? What marketing strategies has Coca-Cola company used in the past? Too broad, too narrow, just right? What are the 14 different disease-causing genes discovered in 1994? Okay, going a little medical there. What are the 14 different disease-causing genes discovered in 1994, sorry. And then finally, how has traffic laws in Philly affected light truck crashes and people under 30? Okay, talking about some crazy road rage drivers, maybe specifically in light trucks. So that would be like U-Hauls. Interesting. All right, what do you think? What do you think? Discuss. Pause this video. No, really, like I'm gonna do the Dora Explorer, like, what do you think? And just stare at you. So really, pause, discuss. Pause the video. Great, great, great. All right, we'll move on then, right, to discussing this. So have underlined a few things and have discussed, like listed those things we talked about. If it's too broad, you're going to get too much to cover. If it's too narrow, it's going to be too specific. So starting off with our Coca-Cola, of what marketing strategies has Coca-Cola Company used in the past? All right, and I underline two important pieces of information here: marketing strategies and used in the past. Why did you underline those, Miss Will? Well, because I can say what marketing strategies, right? Which ones? Are we talking TV, radio? We're talking visual, as in like billboards? Are we talking about like their bottles that they use for their drinks, right? And then used in the past. Don't know about you, but Coca-Cola has existed my entire lifetime, which is a hot skip jump, right? Meaning that Coca-Cola is a very old company, very old in that I want to say they were created in the 90s, maybe later 80s, right? So they have a lot of past if we're looking at everything the company's ever done, right? We're not looking at specifically US, we're looking worldwide. So this research question is actually too broad, too broad. We're going to get all different types of marketing strategies all over the world for the past couple of decades, right, of information. That is a ton to sort through. Not what we're looking for. What can we do to fix that? Make more specific on, are we looking at Coca-Cola Company in the US? What time frame? Maybe what specific strategies are you looking at? Right? So again, revising it, narrowing it down. All right, next one. This one's a little tricky. What are the 14 different disease-causing genes discovered in 1994? What do you think? What do you think? Well, Miss Wilt, you have something underlined, which means there must be something wrong with it. Interesting thought. Key with this one, right? It is more specific, right? We have what kind of genes that we're looking at, the disease-causing ones, and that there's 14 of them. We already know some of that, right? We have the time frame, which is a little more specific, but you are correct, wonderful strange voice in my head, is that we list 14. Hint with this and why it might be too narrow in some respects is that you might find multiple sources that talk about it, but they might just list the 14, right? Might just find a wiki page and another page that just lists the first one is, the second one, right? So you might not find a lot of information about how they're used in science or how they've developed other things, right? You might just get a list. So that one is better, but I would be still hesitant of it because you were looking for a finite number in it, which sometimes can lead to your results being too narrow because you're going to get the same thing of just a list of the 14. But we're getting there, definitely better. All right, last one here. This one is uber specific, right? This one I just started highlighting of like where the specifics were. How has traffic laws in Philly, so Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, affected light truck crashes? Not all trucks, just light trucks crashes in people under 30. So this is uber, super specific. We're looking at traffic laws in a specific place for specific types of trucks, right? That were driven by people of a certain age group. Let me think. All right, this one is the opposite of broad, right? This one I would almost say is leaning, in my opinion, to being too narrow, right? You're probably going to find maybe all of it, and I say this and someone out there will go and research it, right? Of specific age and type of truck in a certain place, looking at specific laws that have changed, right, might be too much. Maybe it's just looking at how traffic laws in Philadelphia have changed in a specific time frame, and then looking at those specifics of age and the type of crashes and things involved later versus trying to put that out front, right? The key with this that I like to include it as an example is you don't want to go out and ask exactly what you're looking for in terms of, I need research that shows me this exact point, and I need a source that proves it, right? You want a broader question that you are learning about your topic a little bit, where it's, how has these genes been used, or what are the marketing strategies that they've used in the past that have worked, right, or the most iconic, or what traffic laws have changed, right? We're not looking for super specific of, was there light truck crashes that happened where someone under the age of 30 was driving that resulted in Philadelphia changing their traffic laws, right? That's like super specific, where you're either going to not find information, or it's going to be so little and so specific that it might not be actually helpful for your argument, because it is not something that people can collaborate with or mention in other articles, right? And other information. So kind of balance there. I know that is a little kind of a vague, because this is a little gray area where you're looking for a good research question, and it depends a lot on your topic of what, again, you wrote your argumentative essay about, right? But you're trying to find that balance of something you can revise, even if you write it out and you kind of think about it and go back, but you don't want it to be too broad, or if you typed it into Google, you're getting tons and tons of results that you'll never be able to read all of them. And you don't want to be too narrow, where you're looking for a specific list or a specific answer, right? Where it's going to be really, really specific and not really give you a lot of information to include in your essay. All right, so last thing to think about, right? I said you were research question. That's what we're thinking of for your assignments this week. The other thing I said I would go over is gathering sources. So a lot of you will just be like, oh, I'll just go on Google. Here we go, Yahoo, even Reddit. Makes me cry a little. Or straight to Wiki. That one really hits my heart. Really hits the hardest, the Wikipedia. Ooh, but okay, live your life, make your choices, but all right, because it's better than Facebook or Insta, but all right. But what I'm going to do is help you with some other sources, other things to do to help you gather research. All right, one of those things is keywords. All right, so this is looking at once you have formatted your research question, right? A lot of people will type a full question out into Google of, how do I know how old my dog is? Question mark, Google, right? Hoping for an answer. What you can do to make your research more speedy, more efficient, is using keywords, meaning picking out specific words that are important in your research question or for your topic, and just typing those into a search engine instead of trying to type out your full question. So the easiest to do that is picking out nouns, so person, place, thing, and verbs, those action words, right, of your research question, rather than typing out the full question. Because what happens a lot is it has what's called filler words, right? To, me, my, or the, right? Where it'll pull something from an article, where lots of articles and lots of things we write have that. So it'll say, oh yeah, this is a match, when you're like, no, it has nothing to do with what I'm talking about, right? So keywords can help. Some examples here of I have, are teens who spend more time on social media more likely to suffer anxiety or depression? And again, I'm picking out those nouns and verbs of teen, it's a person, social media, is that thing, a noun, right? Suffer, even I could include, right? Anxiety and depression, again, is that noun or that thing that I'm looking at. So I would just type teens, social media, depression into the search engine so that I don't have to write this whole sentence. Another example here of, how has New Orleans and the government's response to natural disasters changed since Hurricane Katrina? I'm looking at New Orleans specifically, right? Government's response, natural disasters. All of these are nouns, kind of response is the verb there. And since Hurricane Katrina, right, could look at specifically a year there to help me kind of pinpoint things. So again, picking out the key nouns and verbs in your research question and then just typing those in to find articles and research instead of typing out your entire research question is one way to help you with your research. Another way to help you is what's called a Boolean search. So Boolean, crazy scientist guy, get to name something if you come up with something cool, right? Is just the idea that you have these what are called operators, or the way that you format or include things in your search so that you can include, non-include, right? Different types of searches or resources. So I have a list of some of these here. You can also look them up if you look up Boolean search operators or just Boolean search. You can find lots of them on the web, right? But if you say and, it's going to include, say, red and orange. It's going to include all the sources that have both of those words, right? Whereas if you said red or orange, right, it's going to only have one of them, but it's going to include sources that have just talking about oranges and maybe doesn't talk about red in any way, shape, but you wanted one or the other. If you say and, it has to have both. So it's only going to include sources that talk about oranges and red apples, right? If that's what you're looking for. You can also say not, will exclude certain phrases, can put things in quotes if you want that specific word, right? Brackets, lots of interesting things there. Again, if you're interested in that, I highly recommend looking up Boolean search. Just again, it's kind of like telling the computer system that is the internet, the search engine, what to look for and how to filter the sources that you're looking at. With that, highly, highly recommend using advanced search. Advanced search and Google Scholar were my best friends high school into college, especially in college was a Google Scholar 100% of the time doing my research. All right. So when you're saying advanced search, the nice thing with this is it does a lot of those kind of filtering keywords and Boolean search for you. So if you're using it on Google, I use Google because it's the highly used source, right? And because that's just my go-to as a Intel, Microsoft, Windows person, all right? So you can search advanced search in Google. It will pop up. You can fill out all of these sections. Nice thing is it also tells you, I don't know if you can read this, on the far right side when you're filling it out, it will also tell you how to use those Boolean search terms to do the exact same thing when you're just searching on Google. So helpful reference there. But you fill out the sections where it has find pages with these words, can even do, filter out things with explicit language if you want to keep it school appropriate, right? Search terms, etc. And it helps narrow down all of the sources so that you don't have to worry about the Boolean search terms at all. And a lot of the things where like explicit language, you would have to just skim the sources yourself, whereas this will do it for you. All right, so again, helpful resources there. Also recommend Google Scholar, where you do the same thing. You type in Google Scholar and it will give you just peer-reviewed articles. Right, just peer-reviewed. I think it has an option on here to just do like Google Scholar as well, or peer-reviewed articles. That for sure, is not just someone writing a blog somewhere, right? Is a little more reliable source. So always using some advanced search as well as Google Scholar, helpful. And the last one I like to point out, I'm an English teacher, can't help myself, also just helpful to know, is the Dewey Decimal System. If you don't know what the Dewey Decimal System is, it's something else that's named after a person. I don't know who Dewey is, it's probably a white man that's dead, but All right, so the Dewey Decimal System is just a number system that's used to organize books in libraries, the same way we would use certain search terms to organize the sources you find on Google. Right? So a picture there of starting with the kind of zeros with a topic all the way up to 900 there of just some examples where some are technology, some are science, right? But it's kind of like different folders on a computer where if you know the number you're looking for and you know the Dewey Decimal System, you can very clearly look it up and say what section of the books in my near library would be helpful for my topic. And again, I already hear it. You don't even have to say it. Miss Will, the libraries are closed, or I don't even ever use books, or I can't go to the library. I just use things online. Stress me out, hurts my heart again. But again, useful to know. Dewey Decimal System is just the system that is used, number coding, to again categorize and organize books by topic to help you find books in a library. Helpful to note, again, if you are more interested in that, hint, hint, you probably will be this week for your assignment. All right, you can just look up the Dewey Decimal System or use for reference this picture here to let you know kind of where you would find certain topics for your books. All right, so again, that gets you started with your research question and some gathering of sources. Big thing is going to be figuring out, right, your research question from your argumentative essay of what exactly are you researching, right? What are you looking at? What are you focusing on? Trying to not be too broad and being like, yeah, I'm just looking at space. What about it, right? Just being specific, not super specific to the point that you're getting so narrow that you're not going to get any sources, or that you're just trying to back up a point that you've already formed, right? We want to kind of learn a little bit about your topic here. So gives you an idea to get you started, some tips and tricks to begin your research. I wish you luck. You got this. Getting started with that Englishy stuff, and I'll see you again a little later.